When Rachel's hand connected with my face at the wedding reception, the sound echoed through the ballroom like a gunshot. 143 guests, I counted them earlier while nursing my bourbon, went silent. Every fork stopped halfway to every mouth. The band quit mid-note. Even the ice stopped clinking in the glasses. "Give me the keys," she said again, her voice calm now, almost pleasant. "Right now." I touched my cheek. It burned. My son stood 3 feet behind her, looking at his shoes like they were the most fascinating things in the world. 28 years old, and he couldn't meet his father's eyes. "No," I said. She smiled, actually smiled. "Then consider yourself uninvited from every family gathering from this day forward. Your choice, old man." I walked out. Didn't run, didn't storm, just walked. My wife caught up with me in the parking lot, her heels clicking on the asphalt. "Tom, please," she said. "She's just what? Young? Ambitious? A manipulative parasite who sees my apartment as her next acquisition? That's our son's wife now." "That's my problem," I said. "The apartment. 3 bedrooms, downtown, worth maybe $800,000 in today's market. I bought it in 1997 for $70,000 when the neighborhood was still rough. Fixed it up myself. Every pipe, every tile. My hands built that place. Rachel wanted it for her investment portfolio. She'd told me as much 6 months ago over dinner, talking about maximizing family assets, like I was some item on a spreadsheet. I drove home alone that night. My wife stayed at the reception, trying to smooth things over. She was good at that. Me? I'd never been good at swallowing humiliation with a smile. The apartment was dark when I walked in. I didn't turn on the lights, just sat in my chair by the window and looked out at the city. 40 years I'd lived here. 40 years of watching this place change, grow, become something worth wanting. My phone buzzed. A text from Rachel's father, Gregory. "We need to talk. Tomorrow, 9 a.m., my office." I didn't respond. At 9:15 the next morning, someone knocked on my door. Not a friendly knock. The kind that says, "I know you're in there." I opened it. A man stood there, early 30s, expensive suit, empty eyes. "Mr. Harrison? Who's asking?" "Mr. Westbrook would like to have a conversation with you about your property." "Tell Mr. Westbrook I'm not selling." "He's not asking you to sell. He's informing you of the new arrangement." I started to close the door. The man's foot stopped it. "Your son signed a power of attorney last week," he said, "giving his wife full authority over any property transactions involving family assets, including yours. That's not legal. It is when the property's in a trust, which yours is. Your son convinced you to put it in a family trust 3 years ago, remember? For tax purposes." I remembered. My son had been so earnest, so concerned about protecting the family, about making sure everything was properly structured. "Get out," I said. The man smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "Mr. Westbrook will be in touch." He left. I stood there in my doorway, my hands shaking. Not from fear, from rage. I called my son immediately. He answered on the 5th ring. "Dad, I can't really talk right now." "What the hell did you sign?" Silence on the other end. Then I heard Rachel's voice in the background, sharp and insistent. "Hang up." "Michael," I said, "you answer me right now. What did you sign?" "It's just paperwork, Dad. Rachel's family has lawyers who said, Rachel's family doesn't give a damn about you. They want my property." "That's not fair. They're helping us. We're in debt and they're trying to—" "By stealing from me?" "Nobody's stealing anything. The trust allows for redistribution when—" "When what? When you decide you want something that belongs to me?" My son's voice got quieter. "Rachel says you're being selfish. That you don't need all that space. That we could use it to—" "To what? Build her empire?" "I built that place with my own hands, Michael. You were 7 years old when I was laying those floors. You remember that? You remember helping me paint those walls?" "Things change, Dad." "Yeah," I said. "They do." I hung up. My hands were still shaking. I spent the next 3 days in my office, going through every document I'd signed in the past 5 years. Tax returns, trust documents, property deeds, bills of sale, everything. There it was, buried in subsection D, paragraph 12 of the Family Trust Agreement, a clause allowing any immediate family member to petition for property redistribution if they could demonstrate financial necessity and benefit to the family unit. My son had played me perfectly. 3 years of groundwork. 3 years of, Dad, you should really protect your assets, and Dad, think about estate taxes, and Dad, let me help you set this up properly. I'd trusted him. Why wouldn't I? He was my son. I called my lawyer. Dennis had handled my affairs for 20 years. Divorce settlements, property closings, wills. If anyone could find a loophole, he could. Tom, he said, after reviewing the documents. This is tight, very tight. Whoever drew this up knew exactly what they were doing. So I'm screwed. Not necessarily. The clause requires proof of financial necessity. If your son and his wife can't demonstrate that, the petition fails. And if they can? Silence on the other end. The kind of silence that costs $600 an hour. Dennis? Then you'd better start looking for somewhere else to live. I hung up, sat there in my office, surrounded by 40 years of paperwork. 40 years of building a life, one document at a time. My wife came home that evening with groceries and guilt. She unpacked in silence while I sat at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. He's still your son, she finally said. Is he? Tom, when did he become this? When did my kid turn into someone who'd steal from his own father? She sat down across from me. Her eyes were red. She'd been crying. He's in debt, bad debt. Rachel's family has been covering it, but there are conditions. What kind of conditions? The kind that involve delivering assets to prove loyalty. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. How much debt? 200,000. Maybe more. Jesus Christ. Gambling. Business investments that went wrong. He was trying to impress her family, trying to prove he was worth marrying into the Westbrook empire. By stealing from me. By doing what they asked. Tom, they own him now. Completely. I stood up, walked to the window. The city lights blurred in my vision. Not from tears, from rage so pure, it was almost blinding. Then I guess I need to unown him, I said. My wife didn't respond. Just sat there at the kitchen table, crying quietly into her hands. I spent that night making calls, old contacts, people I'd worked with over the years in construction, in business, in the gray areas where favors got traded and information changed hands. I needed to understand exactly what I was up against. By morning, I had a clearer picture. Gregory Westbrook owned half the commercial real estate downtown. He had connections with city council, with planning boards, with every regulatory body that mattered. He was the kind of man who made one phone call and problems disappeared. And now he wanted my apartment. Not because he needed it, because his daughter wanted it, and what his daughter wanted, she got. I understood the game now. Rachel had married my son as an acquisition strategy. Young, ambitious woman from money marries, slightly older man with assets, consolidates holdings, eliminates redundancies, pure business. My son was just the vehicle. I was just the obstacle. Gregory Westbrook's office was downtown, 40th floor, glass and steel and intimidation. His secretary was blonde and bored and pointed me to a chair without looking up from her computer. Mr. Westbrook will be with you shortly, she said. I waited 30 minutes. Power play. Make the old man sweat. Let him understand who's in charge here. When Gregory finally emerged from his inner office, he was on the phone, laughing at something, making a show of being too busy to notice me. He wrapped up his call, then gestured me inside. Tom, thanks for coming. I didn't have much choice. He smiled. We always have choices. Sit. I sat. His office was exactly what I expected. Mahogany desk the size of my kitchen table, leather chairs that probably cost more than my first car, photos of him shaking hands with mayors and senators, ego and money and power all carefully displayed. "Let's cut to it," he said. "Your property is worth approximately $800,000 in the current market. I'm prepared to offer you $200,000 in cash and a lifetime lease arrangement at a reduced rate." Go to hell. That's emotional thinking, Tom. Let me finish. I'm not selling. You're not being asked to sell. The trust was based on fraud. My lawyer's already filing papers. That stopped him. Just for a second. A flicker of something crossed his face. Respect, maybe. Or calculation. "Fighting this will cost you money you don't have," he said. "Legal fees alone could bankrupt you. I've got 4 lawyers on retainer. You've got Dennis. No offense to Dennis, but this is out of his league. Some things are worth going broke for." "Like what? Pride? That apartment's just a building, Tom. Bricks and mortar. Is it really worth destroying your relationship with your son?" "My son destroyed that relationship when he chose you over me." Gregory leaned back in his chair, studying me like I was a specimen under glass. "Rachel's a smart girl. She sees potential. Your son has potential. But potential needs capital, resources. What you're doing right now, holding on to that property, you're being selfish." "Selfish. Your son needs help. Rachel's family can provide that help, but we need collateral, proof of commitment. Your property serves that purpose." "So you're a loan shark now?" His smile faded. "I'm a businessman. I invest in people who show promise. Your son shows promise, but he needs to demonstrate loyalty, family loyalty. By betraying his father, by making hard choices, by understanding that sometimes we have to sacrifice for the greater good." I stood up. "Tell Rachel something for me. Tell her she can come take those keys herself, in person, anytime she wants. Tom. And tell my son that when he's ready to be a man instead of an errand boy, he knows where to find me." I walked out. My hands weren't shaking anymore. The elevator ride down felt longer than it should have. 40 floors of thinking about everything I'd just learned. Gregory wasn't just wealthy, he was connected. The kind of connected that makes judges rule in your favor and city inspectors look the other way. Fighting him would be like fighting gravity. I did it anyway. The subpoena arrived 3 days later. Rachel had filed for property redistribution, citing financial hardship and family benefit. The hearing was scheduled for 6 weeks out. Dennis called me that evening. "They're moving fast. That's not a good sign." "What do I need to do?" "Prove that surrendering the property would cause you greater hardship than them not receiving it would cause them. Also, we need to demonstrate that their financial necessity claim is fraudulent." "It is fraudulent. Rachel's family has more money than God. Her family's money isn't her money. Legally, she and your son are their own financial entity. If they can show debt, show struggle, the court might side with them. So, I need to prove they're lying." "Essentially, yes." I spent the next week digging. Bank records, credit reports, every piece of financial information I could legally access. My son had been careful, but not careful enough. I found his credit card statements first. Charges at restaurants where the bill ran 4 figures. Purchases at stores I couldn't afford to window shop at. Trips to Vegas, Miami, the Bahamas, all within the past 2 years. This wasn't financial hardship. This was financial recklessness. But the real discovery came when I hired a forensic accountant, a woman named Linda who specialized in tracking hidden assets. She cost $300 an hour and was worth every penny. "Your daughter-in-law has 3 offshore accounts," Linda told me over coffee at a diner near her office. 2 in the Caymans, 1 in Switzerland. Total balance is just over $3 million. I set down my cup. $3 million. Give or take. She's been funneling money from her family for years, hiding it, building her own nest egg while crying poverty to the courts. Can we use this? Depends. Getting access to offshore account records in court is tricky. We'll need to demonstrate that she has direct control over these funds, not just beneficial interest. Can you do that? Linda smiled. That's why you're paying me $300 an hour. I showed Dennis the information that evening. He whistled low and long. This changes everything, he said. If we can prove she has access to these funds, we can prove the hardship claim is garbage. Exactly. But Tom? Getting this into evidence? She'll fight us with everything she has. This is going to get ugly. Good, I said. Let it get ugly. The first family gathering after the subpoena was my nephew's birthday party. My sister hosted it at her house, a suburban ranch with a big backyard and enough space for 30 people to pretend everything was fine. I almost didn't go, but my wife convinced me. We can't let them destroy the whole family, she said. You have to show up. You have to show everyone that you're not the villain here. So I showed up. Rachel and my son arrived late, fashionably late, making an entrance. She wore white. White dress, white heels, white smile, like she was the virgin at a sacrifice. The room went quiet when they saw me. Not silent like the wedding, just quiet, awkward. People suddenly finding reasons to examine their plates or refresh their drinks. My son walked over first. Dad. Son, can we talk? About what? Your wife's offshore accounts? Or about how you're trying to steal my home? His face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. 3 accounts. $3 million. You want to explain that to me? Rachel appeared at his elbow, moving like a shark through water. Smooth, predatory. Tom, how lovely to see you. Wish I could say the same. I hear you've been doing some investigating, hiring forensic accountants. That must be expensive. Not as expensive as your lies. She smiled. That same smile from the wedding. Calm, pleasant, terrifying in its complete lack of genuine emotion. You can't win this, she said quietly, so only I could hear. You're an old man with a small-time lawyer fighting against resources you can't even imagine. Give up now, and we'll make this easy for you. Keep fighting, and we'll destroy you completely. Or what? You'll slap me again? Her smile didn't waver. I'll do worse than slap you. I'll take everything. Your apartment, your dignity, your relationship with your son, your wife's peace of mind. And when I'm done, you'll be left with nothing but regret and an empty bank account. Try it, I said. She leaned in closer. I already am. My nephew appeared then, interrupting with birthday cake and forced cheerfulness. Rachel and my son drifted away. I stood there in my sister's living room, surrounded by family who didn't know what to say to me anymore, feeling more alone than I'd ever felt in my life. My wife found me outside 20 minutes later, standing in the backyard, staring at nothing. What did she say to you? She asked. That she's going to destroy me. Can she? I thought about Gregory Westbrook's connections, about the 4 lawyers on retainer, about the offshore accounts and the power and the complete lack of mercy in Rachel's eyes. Maybe, I said, but I'm going to make her work for it. The hearing was in 3 weeks. Dennis filed our counterclaim with the offshore account evidence attached. Rachel's lawyers responded with a motion to suppress, claiming the records were obtained illegally. They weren't. Linda had done everything by the book, but Rachel was trying to bury us in paperwork, drag things out, make it too expensive to continue. Every motion cost money. Every response cost money. Every hour Dennis spent reviewing documents was $600 I didn't really have. My wife started having panic attacks. I'd find her at night, sitting in the dark, crying. Maybe we should just give it up, she said one night. Tom, this is destroying us. They're destroying us, not me. Them. What's the difference? Either way, our family is falling apart. The family fell apart the day our son decided money was more important than integrity. She didn't argue. She just cried. And I sat there next to her, feeling like the worst husband in the world because I couldn't make this better for her. But I couldn't give up either, because if I gave up, Rachel won. And if Rachel won, it proved that people like her could take whatever they wanted from people like me, and there was nothing we could do about it. I couldn't let that be the lesson my son learned. I couldn't let that be the world we lived in. So I kept fighting. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about Rachel's smile, about my son's pale face, about the way Gregory Westbrook had looked at me like I was an insect to be crushed. At 3 a.m, I got up and went to my office, started making more calls, deeper calls, people I hadn't talked to in years. Some of them I'd done favors for. Some of them owed me. If Rachel wanted to play dirty, I'd show her what dirty really looked like. 2 weeks before the hearing, I got a call from a private investigator named Sarah. She'd worked with Dennis before on custody cases. Tough woman, ex-cop, didn't take any garbage from anyone. I found something, she said, about Rachel's father. What? Gregory Westbrook isn't as clean as he looks. 3 years ago, there was an investigation into his company for securities fraud. It got buried. Sealed records. But I have a contact in the DA's office who remembers it. Can we use that? Maybe. If we can tie it to Rachel's offshore accounts, show that the money came from illegal activities, we can not only defeat her claim, but potentially bring criminal charges. My heart was pounding. Do it. This is going to cost you, Tom. I'm talking surveillance, document requests, maybe bribing a clerk or two to unseal records that shouldn't be unsealed. How much? 10,000, maybe 15. I thought about my savings, about retirement accounts I'd been building for 30 years, about the future my wife and I had planned. Do it, I said again. Sarah did it. She spent the next 10 days digging through everything, following paper trails, interviewing former employees of Westbrook Enterprises, building a case. What she found was beautiful in its corruption. Gregory Westbrook had been running a securities fraud scheme for the better part of a decade. He'd been taking investor money, promising returns, and then using new investments to pay off old ones. Classic pyramid scheme. When it started to collapse 3 years ago, he'd moved all the money offshore, into accounts in his daughter's name. Rachel wasn't just hiding money, she was laundering it. The next day, Rachel's lawyer called Dennis. They want to settle, Dennis told me. They'll drop the property claim if you drop the investigation into the offshore accounts. No deal. Tom, think about this. You'd keep your apartment. Your family? My family is already gone. What I have left is my property and my principles. I'm not trading either one for a settlement that lets them walk away clean. Dennis sighed. They're scared. That's good for us. But scared people do desperate things. Let them get desperate, I said. I'm ready. I wasn't ready. Not really. But I said it anyway because sometimes you have to convince yourself before you can convince anyone else. The next week crawled by. Rachel's lawyers filed 3 more motions trying to suppress evidence. Dennis shot them all down. The judge was getting annoyed with the delays. My son called me twice. I didn't answer. My wife begged me to talk to him. He's scared, she said. He doesn't know what's happening. He should have thought about that before he signed those papers. Tom, please, he's still your son. Then he needs to act like it. But late one night, I did call him back. He answered on the first ring. Dad? You need to understand something, I said. Your wife is a criminal. Her father is a criminal. They've been using you as a pawn in a game you don't even understand. That's not true. It is true. And when this hearing happens, it's all going to come out. The fraud, the laundering, all of it. You need to decide right now whether you're going down with them or whether you're going to save yourself. Silence on the other end. Michael, what do you want me to do? Tell the truth. When they ask you questions, tell the truth. Don't lie for her. Don't cover for her. Just tell the truth. She's my wife. She's a criminal who married you for access to my property. You really think she loves you? More silence. Then, quietly, I don't know anymore. Then figure it out, I said, before it's too late. I hung up, sat there in the dark, wondering if I'd just saved my son or pushed him further away. The morning of the hearing, I put on my best suit, the charcoal one I'd worn to my father's funeral. My wife stood in the doorway of our bedroom, watching me adjust my tie. "Whatever happens today," she said, "I love you. I know. Even if you win, Tom, even if you keep the apartment, we've lost our son." "We lost him the day he chose her over us," I said. "Today's just the day everyone else finds out." The courthouse was downtown, same building where I'd served jury duty 15 years ago. Dennis met me outside. He looked tired. We'd been working 18-hour days for weeks, preparing every argument, anticipating every move Rachel's lawyers might make. "Ready?" he asked. "No," I said, "but let's do it anyway." Rachel and my son were already inside, sitting with their legal team. 4 lawyers, 4, for a property dispute. That's how seriously Gregory Westbrook was taking this. She saw me and smiled. That smile. The one that didn't reach her eyes, the one that said she'd already won, and this was just a formality. Gregory Westbrook sat behind them in the gallery, watching everything like a chess master studying a board. Next to him were 2 men I didn't recognize, big men, the kind who got paid to make problems disappear. The judge was a woman in her 60s named Martinez. She had a reputation for being fair but brutal. No patience for games or wasted time. She'd seen every legal trick in the book and was tired of all of them. "This is a trust dispute regarding property redistribution," she said once we were all seated. "I've reviewed the filings from both sides, and I have to say, this is one of the more complicated cases I've seen in recent memory. Let's start with the petitioners. Ms. Westbrook, why don't you tell me why you believe you're entitled to Mr. Harrison's property?" Rachel stood. She'd dressed carefully. Conservative suit, minimal makeup, humble expression, playing the struggling young wife who just needed a little help from her selfish father-in-law. "Your Honor, my husband and I are in significant financial distress. We have debts exceeding $200,000 from business investments that failed through no fault of our own. My father-in-law has a valuable property that he lives in alone, while we're struggling to make rent payments and keep food on the table. The family trust was established specifically to help family members in need during times of crisis. We're in crisis, Your Honor. We need help." She was good. I had to give her that. Her voice cracked just slightly when she talked about struggling to put food on the table. Her eyes got a little shiny, like she might cry but was being brave. It was all an act. But it was a good act. "And Mr. Harrison's position is that you're not actually in need," Judge Martinez said. "Is that correct, Mr. Harrison?" I stood. "That's correct, Your Honor. She has $3 million in offshore accounts." The courtroom erupted. Rachel's lawyers jumped up, objecting. Gregory Westbrook's face went red. My son looked like he'd been punched in the stomach. Judge Martinez banged her gavel. "Order! Mr. Harrison, that's a serious accusation. Do you have evidence?" "We do, Your Honor. Bank records, account numbers, transfer histories, wire transfers, transaction dates, all obtained legally through a forensic accounting investigation." Rachel's lead lawyer, a man named Patterson, who probably charged $1,000 an hour, stood up. "Your Honor, we move to exclude this evidence. It's prejudicial, it's potentially illegally obtained, and it's—" "And relevant," Judge Martinez said, cutting him off. "I'll allow it. Overruled. Ms. Westbrook, would you like to explain these accounts?" Rachel's smile was gone. Her face had gone blank. No expression at all. "Those accounts are family assets, Your Honor. They're not mine personally. They have your name on them," I said. "My family's money, held in trust for future generations. I don't have direct access." "You made a withdrawal of $50,000 3 months ago," Dennis said, reading from the documents. To purchase a car, a Mercedes. Want to explain how you don't have access? Patterson was on his feet again. Your Honor. Sit down, Counselor. Ms. Westbrook, I'm going to ask you directly. Do you have access to these funds? Rachel hesitated, just for a second, but a second was enough. A second told everyone in that courtroom that she'd been caught. Yes, she finally said, but no buts. You lied under oath about your financial situation. You claimed hardship while sitting on $3 million. Do you understand how serious that is? Your Honor, those funds are complicated. They're not complicated, they're hidden, and I don't appreciate liars in my courtroom. This petition is denied. The gavel came down, but Judge Martinez wasn't done. Furthermore, she said, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney for investigation of perjury charges, and based on what I'm seeing in these documents, potential money laundering charges as well. Mr. Westbrook, you're a lawyer. You know better than to bring a fraudulent claim to my court. Patterson looked like he wanted to argue, then thought better of it. Gregory Westbrook was already standing up, motioning to his security detail. Rachel's face had gone white, not pale, white. My son stood up, started to say something, then sat back down. He looked at me. I looked back. Neither of us said anything. Dennis grabbed my arm. We won. I didn't feel like I'd won. I felt like I'd just watched a bomb go off and was waiting to see who survived the blast. The next 3 weeks were chaos in a way I'd never experienced. Rachel's legal team tried to appeal. The district attorney opened a formal investigation. Gregory Westbrook hired a PR firm to contain the damage to his reputation, issuing statements about being unaware of his daughter's activities. My son called me once. Dad, can we talk? About what? About fixing this, about making this right. There's nothing to fix. You made your choice. I was desperate. Rachel's family, they promised you money and status, and you sold out your family for it. That's not desperation, son, that's character. He hung up. Or I hung up. I honestly couldn't remember later which one of us ended the call first. My wife cried for 3 days straight. Her son, her baby. She'd lost him and couldn't understand why this was happening. Why couldn't we all just get along? Why couldn't I forgive him? I couldn't explain it to her. How do you explain to someone that forgiveness requires remorse, and our son hadn't shown any? He was only sorry he got caught. That's not the same thing. A month after the hearing, Sarah the investigator called me again. The DA's office found something else, she said. Gregory Westbrook's security fraud case from 3 years ago, the money he allegedly embezzled, a significant portion of it ended up in Rachel's offshore accounts. They've been working together, father and daughter, a family business. So she's been laundering money for her father. Looks that way. They're building a case now, federal charges, wire fraud, securities fraud, money laundering, both of them. What about my son? If he didn't know about the money laundering, he's probably clear. If he did know, he could be charged as an accessory. I thought about my son, 28 years old, weak, easily manipulated, but guilty? I didn't know. I honestly didn't know. Keep me informed, I said. There's more, Sarah said. The investigators want to talk to you. They think you might have information that could help their case. What kind of information? Anything Rachel or Gregory might have said to you, anything your son might have mentioned. They're building a timeline, trying to establish when the laundering operation started. I thought about it. Cooperating with federal investigators meant testifying, meant putting my son in an impossible position, meant potentially sending him to prison if he'd known about any of it, but it also meant justice, real justice, not just keeping my apartment but making sure Rachel and Gregory paid for what they'd done. Set up a meeting, I said. The meeting was in a federal building downtown. 2 investigators, both FBI, both wearing the same expression of professional skepticism I'd seen on cops my whole life. They asked me everything. When had I first met Rachel? When had the trust been established? Had anyone ever mentioned the offshore accounts? Had Gregory ever discussed his business with me? I told them everything I knew, everything I remembered, every conversation, every meeting, every detail. At the end, the older investigator, a man named Phillips, leaned back in his chair. "Your son's in a difficult position," he said. "We don't think he knew about the laundering, but he definitely knew about the trust fraud. That makes him a potential co-conspirator. Can you give him immunity if he cooperates? Maybe. Depends on what he knows. Depends on what he's willing to testify to." "He'll testify," I said. "If you offer him immunity, he'll testify." Phillips looked at me. "You're willing to throw your son under the bus to get to his wife?" "I'm willing to hold my son accountable so he learns that actions have consequences. There's a difference." The investigators exchanged glances. Then Phillips nodded. "We'll reach out to him," he said. "Offer him a deal. But Mr. Harrison, this is going to get a lot worse before it gets better." "I know," I said. Gregory Westbrook was arrested on a Tuesday morning. Federal agents, FBI, the whole show. They raided his office, his home, his daughter's apartment, seized computers, files, bank records, everything. It made the news, local first, then national. Prominent businessman charged with securities fraud and money laundering. The news cameras showed him being led out of his office in handcuffs, his expensive suit looking suddenly cheap under the harsh lights. Rachel was arrested the same day. They had enough evidence to tie her directly to the laundering operation. She'd been helping her father hide money for years, taking her cut along the way, building her own fortune on the backs of defrauded investors. My son called me from the police station. "Dad, they want to question me. They think I knew." "Did you?" Silence on the other end. Long enough that I knew the answer before he said it. "Rachel told me it was family money, legal trust funds. I didn't ask questions." "But you suspected something was wrong." "I didn't want to know. That's different than knowing, right?" "No," I said. "It's not." More silence, then quietly. "What do I do?" "Get a lawyer, a real one, not one of the Westbrook family lawyers, an independent attorney who'll actually protect your interests. Will you help me? Help you? After everything you've done? Please, Dad. I made a mistake, a huge mistake, but I'm still your son." I closed my eyes. 40 years of memories flooded through me, teaching him to ride a bike, helping with homework, watching him graduate, walking him through his first heartbreak. All of that was still there, under the betrayal and the lies and the theft. "I'll help you," I said, "but you're going to do exactly what I tell you. No more games, no more lies. You're going to cooperate with the investigators fully, tell them everything you know, and hope to God they believe you were just a fool instead of a criminal." "Okay," he said. His voice was small, like a child's. "And son, you're never going to see Rachel again. Not as long as I'm alive. You understand?" "Yes." "Good. I'll find you a lawyer. Sit tight." I hung up and immediately called Dennis. He gave me 3 names. Criminal defense attorneys with experience in federal cases. I called all 3. Settled on a woman named Barbara Chen who had a reputation for being tough but fair. More importantly, she had a track record of getting cooperation deals for clients who were willing to turn state's evidence. Barbara met with my son that afternoon. By evening, she'd negotiated a preliminary immunity agreement. My son would testify about everything he knew regarding Rachel's financial activities, Gregory's business dealings, and the trust fraud. In exchange, he wouldn't be charged. The condition was simple. He had to tell the complete truth. Any lies, any omissions, and the deal was off. My son agreed. The trial was set for 6 months out. Gregory had an army of lawyers fighting every charge, filing motions, demanding discovery, trying to delay everything. Rachel had gone quiet, retreated into silence, and stone-faced refusal to cooperate. Her lawyers were arguing that she'd been manipulated by her father, that she hadn't known the money was illegal. Nobody believed them. My son moved back in with us while he waited for the trial, My wife was happy to have him home, even under these circumstances. She cooked his favorite meals, did his laundry, tried to make everything feel normal. I was less accommodating. He had the guest room. He ate dinner with us. But we didn't talk much. The air between us was thick with everything unsaid. One night, about 3 weeks after he moved back, he came to my office. I was reviewing paperwork from Dennis. "Dad?" "What?" "I need to know something. Do you hate me?" I looked at him. Really looked at him. He'd lost weight. His eyes were hollow. He looked like a man who'd been beaten, and not just physically, emotionally, spiritually. Every part of him that had believed in something had been crushed. "No," I said. "I don't hate you. I'm disappointed. I'm angry. But I don't hate you. Rachel told me you were holding me back, that you were keeping me from being successful, that I'd never be anything if I kept living in your shadow. And you believed her. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to be somebody important, somebody who mattered. You mattered to me," I said. "That wasn't enough for you." He started crying, not quiet tears, real, ugly, broken crying. The kind that comes from realizing you've destroyed something precious and can't put it back together. I didn't comfort him. I just sat there and let him cry. Some lessons can only be learned through pain. Some consequences can't be avoided or softened or explained away. After a while, he wiped his face with his sleeve. "The prosecutors want me to testify about the wedding, about when Rachel slapped you. They think it demonstrates her character, her willingness to publicly humiliate people to get what she wants. Will you do it?" "I don't know. It means standing up in front of everyone and admitting what happened, admitting that I just stood there and let her do that to you." "You did stand there," I said. "That's the truth. That's what happened." "I know. I don't know if I can say it out loud, in court, with everyone watching." "Then you need to decide what's more important, your pride or your freedom. Because if you don't cooperate fully, that immunity deal goes away, and then you're looking at federal charges." He nodded slowly. "I'll do it. I'll testify." "Good," I said. The trial started on a cold morning in February. Snow on the ground, gray sky, the kind of weather that makes everything feel heavier than it should. Gregory Westbrook looked smaller in the defendant's chair, less powerful. The expensive suit couldn't hide the fact that he was a man facing 20 years in federal prison. His lawyers surrounded him like protective walls, but even they couldn't hide the fear in his eyes. Rachel sat next to him, stone-faced and silent. She'd lost weight too. The prison jumpsuit didn't fit her well. No makeup, no smile, just blank, empty eyes staring at nothing. The prosecution laid out their case over 3 days. Wire fraud, securities fraud, money laundering, conspiracy. They had documents, bank records, testimony from investors who'd lost everything. They had emails between Rachel and Gregory discussing the best ways to move money offshore. They had transaction records showing millions of dollars flowing through accounts in the Caymans and Switzerland. It was overwhelming. Even Gregory's lawyers looked worried. My son took the stand on the 4th day. The prosecutor, a woman named Jennifer Vasquez, who looked like she ate defense attorneys for breakfast, walked him through everything. "Mr. Harrison, when did you first meet Rachel Westbrook?" 3 years ago, at a charity event downtown." "And what attracted you to her?" "She was beautiful, smart, from a wealthy family. She made me feel important." "When did you learn about your father's property?" "She asked about my family during our second date. I told her about my dad's apartment downtown. She seemed very interested in it." "Did that strike you as odd?" "Not at first. Later I realized she'd been planning something from the beginning." Rachel's lawyer objected. The judge sustained it. Jennifer rephrased. "When did Rachel first suggest that you should have access to your father's property?" "About 6 months into our relationship. She said family assets should be shared. That my father was being selfish by holding on to such a valuable property when we needed help." Did you need help? My son hesitated. I was in debt. Bad debt. I'd made some investments that failed. Rachel's family had been helping me, but there were conditions. What kind of conditions? They wanted me to prove I was serious about the family, about being part of the Westbrook business empire. Rachel said the best way to prove that was to bring assets to the table. Your father's apartment. Yes. Jennifer walked him through the trust setup, the power of attorney, the petition for redistribution. My son answered every question, his voice getting quieter and quieter as the weight of what he'd done became clear to everyone in the courtroom. Then Jennifer asked the question I knew was coming. Mr. Harrison, can you describe what happened at your wedding reception? My son's hands were shaking. Rachel and I had been arguing about the apartment. She wanted the keys immediately. I told her my dad wouldn't just give them up. She said she'd handle it. What did she do? At the reception, in front of about 140 guests, she confronted my father, demanded the keys. He refused. She slapped him across the face. The courtroom was silent. What did you do? Jennifer asked. Nothing. I just stood there and watched. Why didn't you intervene? Because I was a coward. Because I was more afraid of losing Rachel and her family's money than I was of losing my father's respect. Rachel's lawyer stood up. Objection. The witness is editorializing. Sustained. The jury will disregard the witness's characterization of his motives. But it didn't matter. The damage was done. Everyone in that courtroom had seen the truth in my son's face, the shame, the regret. Jennifer continued. Mr. Harrison, did Rachel ever discuss the source of her wealth? She said it was family money, trust funds. I didn't ask many questions. Why not? Because I didn't want to know. I suspected something was wrong. The amounts didn't make sense, the offshore accounts, the secrecy. But I didn't ask because if I knew, I'd have to do something about it. So you chose ignorance? Yes. Why are you testifying today? My son looked directly at Rachel. She stared back, her face showing nothing. Because my father taught me that some things are more important than money. I forgot that for a while, but I remember now. When my son stepped down, he looked at me. I nodded. Just once. Not forgiveness, not yet, but acknowledgement. He'd done what needed doing. Rachel's lawyer tried to make him look like a liar during cross-examination, tried to suggest he was testifying to save himself, to blame his wife for his own crimes. But my son held firm, answered every question honestly, even the ones that made him look bad. The trial lasted 3 more weeks. The defense called character witnesses for Gregory, business associates who swore he was a pillar of the community. They called financial experts who tried to explain away the offshore accounts as legitimate tax strategies. The jury wasn't buying it. Gregory Westbrook was found guilty on all counts: securities fraud, wire fraud, money laundering, conspiracy. The jury was out for less than 2 days. Rachel was found guilty on the money laundering and conspiracy charges. The jury acquitted her on the securities fraud counts, apparently believing that she hadn't been involved in the initial scam, only in hiding the proceeds. The sentencing was 2 months later. Gregory got 18 years in federal prison, no parole for federal sentences. He'd be 76 when he got out, if he survived that long. Rachel got 12 years. My son cried when they read the verdict. My wife held his hand. I just sat there feeling nothing but tired and empty and wondering if any of this had been worth it. 6 months after the sentencing, my son moved out. Got a small apartment across town, nothing fancy. 1 bedroom, old building, but it was his. He got a job working for a nonprofit that helped victims of financial fraud. The work didn't pay much, barely enough to cover rent and groceries, but it was honest work. We had dinner once a month, usually at our place, sometimes at a restaurant halfway between his apartment and ours. The conversations were awkward at first. Surface-level stuff, weather, sports, nothing that mattered. But slowly, over months, we started talking about real things, about what had happened, about the choices he'd made, about the consequences he was still living with. "I see her sometimes," he told me one night over dinner at an Italian place we both liked. "Rachel, in my dreams. She's standing at the end of a hallway, smiling at me. That smile, and I wake up in a cold sweat." "That's normal," I said. "Trauma does that." "Is that what it was?" "Trauma. You were manipulated by someone who knew exactly how to push your buttons, someone who saw your weaknesses and exploited them. Yes, that's trauma. But I made choices. Bad choices." "You did. But you're making better choices now." He nodded slowly. "The foundation I work for, we helped a woman last week. She'd been scammed by her son-in-law. He'd stolen her retirement savings. We got most of it back for her. When she thanked me, she cried. And I thought about Dad and what I tried to take from you." "But you didn't take it. Only because you stopped me." "No, because you chose to testify. You chose the truth over loyalty to Rachel. That was your choice, your decision." My wife was happier. Having her son back in her life, even a diminished version of the relationship they'd had before, filled some hole in her heart that had been bleeding since the wedding. She called him every few days, sent care packages, worried about whether he was eating enough. I was slower to warm up. Every time I looked at him, I saw the man who'd stood by and let his wife slap me, the man who'd tried to steal my home, the man who'd valued money more than family. But I also saw the kid who'd built model airplanes with me on Sunday mornings, the teenager who'd come to me after his first heartbreak, crying about a girl whose name I couldn't even remember now, the young man who'd asked my advice about college, about careers, about life. Both versions were true. Both versions existed. Learning to reconcile them was harder than anything else I'd ever done. One evening, almost a year after the trial, my son came to the apartment. Not for dinner, just to talk. "I've been thinking about something," he said. "About making amends, real amends, not just words." "What did you have in mind?" He handed me a folder. Inside were financial documents, plans, proposals. "I want to start a foundation for people who've been victimized by financial fraud, help them recover, help them fight back against people like the Westbrooks, like who I almost became." I looked through the papers. It was well thought out, detailed, professional, real. "Where's the money coming from?" "I've been saving, working extra shifts, overtime when I can get it. I have about $50,000. It's not much, but it's a start." "Why?" "Because I need to do something good. Something that matters. I can't undo what I did to you, Dad. But maybe I can stop it from happening to someone else." I set the folder down, looked at my son, saw determination in his eyes that hadn't been there before. Purpose, direction, the kind of focus that comes from understanding exactly what you're fighting for. "Okay," I said. "I'll match your $50,000, and I'll help you set it up." His face broke into something like hope, real hope. Not the desperate, grasping hope of someone looking for an easy way out, but the solid, grounded hope of someone ready to do the work. "Really?" "Really. But understand something. This doesn't erase what happened, doesn't undo the betrayal. You'll be working the rest of your life to earn back what you lost." "I know," he said. "I'm ready for that." The foundation launched 9 months later. Small office in a converted warehouse downtown. 2 employees, my son as director, and a paralegal named Jennifer who'd survived her own financial fraud case and understood what victims went through. I consulted, helped with strategy, connected them with lawyers and accountants who could volunteer their time, put them in touch with my old contacts, people who remembered me from my construction days and were willing to help for old times' sake. It grew, slowly at first. 1 case a month, then 2, then 5. Victims of financial fraud found them through word of mouth, through legal aid referrals, through desperate internet searches at 3 in the morning. My son was good at it. Better than I'd expected. He understood what it felt like to be manipulated, to have someone you trusted turn your life upside down. He could talk to victims in a way that other advocates couldn't. No judgment, no condescension. Just empathy and determination to make things right. I was proud of him. Didn't tell him that directly, not yet. But I was proud. 2 years after the trial, Rachel came up for parole. Early release for good behavior. The parole board hearing was open to victims of the fraud scheme. People who'd lost money to Gregory's scam were invited to make statements. My son wanted to go. To say something, to make sure they understand what she did. "You want me to come with you?" I asked. "Would you?" "Yeah," I said. "I would." The hearing was in a correctional facility 2 hours outside the city. We drove there in silence, neither of us sure what to say. My wife had wanted to come, but I'd convinced her to stay home. This was something my son and I needed to do alone. The hearing room was small, cheap paneling on the walls, fluorescent lights that hummed. Rachel sat at a table with her lawyer, a public defender who looked like he was handling 50 cases at once and couldn't keep any of them straight. She looked older. Prison had aged her in a way that time alone couldn't account for. Her hair was graying, lines around her eyes. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something harder, meaner, prison survival instincts. When it was time for victim statements, several people spoke. Investors who'd lost their retirement savings, families who'd been left with nothing, an elderly couple who'd had to sell their house because of Gregory's fraud. Each story was worse than the last. Then my son stood up. "My name is Michael Harrison. I was married to Rachel Westbrook. She manipulated me into betraying my father, destroyed my family relationships, and nearly ruined my life. She did this without remorse, without hesitation, and without mercy." He paused, looked directly at her. She stared back, her face showing nothing. "I forgave my father for being angry at me. I forgave my mother for being disappointed in me. But I'll never forgive you, Rachel. Not because you stole money or committed fraud, because you made me into someone I hated. You took everything good in me and twisted it into something ugly. You made me believe that money mattered more than family, that status mattered more than integrity." His voice got stronger, clearer. "I spent 2 years rebuilding myself from the wreckage you left behind, learning to be someone my father could be proud of again. Learning that the easy path is never the right path. You taught me that lesson, even if you didn't mean to." He turned to the parole board. "Keep her in prison, not because I want revenge, because she'll do it again if you let her out. She's a predator. She sees people as resources to be exploited. Nothing in her has changed. Nothing ever will." The parole board members made notes, asked questions. Rachel's lawyer tried to paint her as rehabilitated, as someone who'd learned from her mistakes and was ready to rejoin society as a productive member. Nobody believed him. The parole board denied her request unanimously. She'd serve her full sentence, every single day of those 12 years. As we left the facility, my son turned to me. "Thank you for coming." "That's what fathers do," I said. "I know you haven't completely forgiven me yet. I know I don't deserve it. But I want you to know I'm going to keep trying, every day, for as long as it takes." I stopped walking, looked at my son, saw the man he'd become, flawed, damaged, but trying, genuinely, honestly, trying to be better. "I forgave you 8 months ago," I said. "I just needed you to earn it before I told you." He started crying. Right there in the parking lot of a correctional facility, with guards watching and other visitors walking past. Didn't care who saw. I hugged him. First real hug in 4 years. He felt smaller than I remembered, more vulnerable, but also stronger in ways that mattered more than physical strength. "Come on," I said after a minute. "Your mother's making dinner. Pot roast." We drove home through the afternoon traffic. My son talked about the foundation, about cases they were working on, about a woman they'd helped recover almost $300,000 from a fraudulent investment scheme. I listened, asked questions, offered suggestions when he asked for advice. It felt almost normal, like we were just father and son again, talking about work and life and nothing particularly heavy. Almost normal, not quite, but close enough. 5 years after the wedding, I stood in my apartment. The same apartment Rachel had tried to steal. Same view of the city. Same rooms I'd renovated with my own hands. Same home I'd fought for. But everything was different now. My son's foundation had helped over 400 families recover from financial fraud. They'd returned over $15 million to victims. Secured criminal charges against 12 different fraud operations. My son had become a respected advocate in the field, speaking at conferences, consulting with lawmakers about closing legal loopholes that allowed predators like Rachel and Gregory to operate. He'd found his purpose, his calling, the thing that made him matter in ways that money never could. My wife had stopped having panic attacks years ago, started sleeping through the night. The hollow look in her eyes was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like peace. She'd forgiven our son completely, the way mothers do, folded him back into her heart like he'd never left. I was slower about it, but I got there eventually. Me? I was 73 now. My hands shook when I tried to hold a coffee cup. My knees hurt when the weather changed. I needed reading glasses for everything. Age had caught up with me in ways I couldn't ignore anymore. But I was home, in my apartment, the place I'd built with my own hands and defended with everything I had. Rachel was still in prison, 7 more years on her sentence. Gregory had died 3 years ago. Heart attack, during an appeal hearing. Collapsed right there in the courtroom. They'd tried to revive him, but couldn't. Buried him in a cheap grave because all his assets had been seized to pay restitution to his victims. My son visited every Sunday now. Him and his girlfriend, a woman named Lisa, who worked at the foundation with him. She was good for him. Grounded. Honest. Everything Rachel hadn't been. We'd have dinner. Talk about the foundation. About life. About grandkids they were thinking about having someday. Normal family stuff. The kind of conversations I'd thought we'd never have again. We still never talked about the wedding, about the slap, about those dark months when everything fell apart. Some things were better left buried. One Sunday evening, my son stayed after Lisa left. We sat in my office, the room where I'd planned my defense against his wife and her family, where I'd made the calls and hired the investigators and decided to fight instead of surrender. "Dad," he said, "I need to tell you something." "What?" "I've been offered a job, executive director position at a national anti-fraud organization, based in Washington. It's a big opportunity, chance to make real change on a national level." "That's good," I said. "You should take it. It means leaving, moving across the country." "I know. Mom's upset. She doesn't want me to go." "Your mother will survive. She's tougher than she looks." He nodded slowly. "What about you? Do you want me to stay?" I thought about it, really thought about it. Part of me wanted him close, wanted these Sunday dinners to continue, wanted the routine we'd built over the past few years. But a bigger part of me wanted him to succeed, to build something important, to matter in ways that went beyond our small family drama. "No," I said. "I want you to go. I want you to take that job and change the world, or at least make it a little bit better." "You sure?" "I'm sure." He looked relieved. "I was afraid you'd think I was running away again." "You're not running away. You're running toward something. There's a difference." We sat in silence for a moment, father and son. "Dad," he said finally, "I never thanked you." "For what?" "For fighting. For not giving up. For showing me that some things are worth standing up for, even when it costs you everything." It didn't cost me everything, I said. I kept what mattered. The apartment? No. My principles. My integrity. The knowledge that I didn't let someone bully me into submission just because they had more money and power. My son smiled. Actually smiled. Rachel thought you were weak. She told me that. Said you were just an old man who couldn't adapt to the new world, that you'd fold the minute things got difficult. She was wrong. Yeah, he said. She was. He stood up to leave, stopped at the door. I love you, Dad. I know, I said. I love you too. After he left, I sat in my chair by the window. My wife came in, put a hand on my shoulder. He's leaving, she said. It wasn't a question. Yeah. Are you okay with that? I looked out at the city. My city. The place I'd called home for 50 years. The view I'd fought to keep. Yeah, I said. I'm okay with that. She squeezed my shoulder. We stood there together, watching the sun set over the downtown buildings, the lights starting to flicker on as darkness fell. I thought about Rachel in prison, about Gregory in his grave, about my son building something good from the wreckage of what they'd almost destroyed. I thought about the wedding reception, about that slap, about the sound it made echoing through the ballroom, about the humiliation and the rage and the decision I'd made in that moment to fight instead of fold. I'd won. Not because I'd destroyed them, not because I'd gotten revenge in some petty vindictive way, but because I'd refused to be destroyed, because I'd stood my ground and said no when someone tried to take from me what I'd built. That was enough. More than enough. I looked around my apartment, my home, the place that represented everything I'd fought for: independence, dignity, the right to say no. Rachel had thought she could break me with one slap, with lawyers and money and power. She'd been wrong. I was still here, still standing, still in my home. And she was in a cell, counting down the years until she'd be old and broken and forgotten. Justice isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's just the quiet satisfaction of knowing you did the right thing, even when it was hard, even when it cost you. I'd paid the cost, lost years with my son, put my wife through hell, spent money I couldn't really afford on lawyers and investigators, but I'd kept what mattered. My wife leaned her head against my shoulder. "Come to bed," she said. "It's late." "In a minute." She left. I stood there alone, looking out at the city lights. 73 years old, tired, worn down by time and struggle and the weight of everything that had happened, but still here, still standing, still home.